Welcome to Retail OCD, where we explore how trends and current events are reshaping the hearts and minds of consumers, technologies, and the retail industry. I'm Deanne, store design, operations, and customer experience expert. And today is a very hot topic because AI isn't really just changing how retailers advertise, it's changing who they can reach. And our guest today is Scott Kramer, head of growth for AS Beauty, a company with a huge portfolio of top beauty brands that include Laura Geller, Bliss, Cover FX, Cover FX, Mally, and Julep Beauty. I should know how to say this because I know all these brands. I buy all these brands. I love all these brands. I'm going to shut up and turn this over to you, Scott.
No worries, Dan. I know it's a mouthful of a portfolio. But yeah, excited to chat with you guys today. So I'm Scott Kramer, head of growth at AS Beauty. So Beauty and Cosmetics Holding Company. I've helped 10x revenue over the last 4 years there. Came in the early days and really helped revamp our paid media performance strategy. We were mostly focused on Facebook and paid social. And then how did we kind of evolve in a ever-growing landscape to becoming a 9-figure business, and then just adapting to different trends, everything in the industry from AI to TikTok shops to linear CTV and mobile gaming. I think mobile gaming advertising was one of these also kind of like wild pivotal moments that we've been fortunate enough to take advantage of. I think that's where I like to call myself the arbitrage marketer that finds things early, gets in, takes advantage of them, and then either stays on or gets out. So I think that's critical these days for growth, and especially in high growth areas.
Well, I think that makes you the perfect person to talk about this because our topic today is really how AI is changing performance marketing. And I think it's changing significantly. I'll just throw out a starter question to get the conversation going. You're in the beauty industry, one of many categories where it's not about impulse buys. It's about a product that consumers research before buying. It's something that they consider before they buy. Really, AI is built around low friction purchases, impulse purchases, things like fast fashion and CPG. So how do you adapt your marketing tools?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's the interesting thing and what I love so much about beauty, that it is, I wouldn't say that it's not impulse purchase, but I think there is an appetite to explore and to test new products. I think that's the nice thing. If you talk to people in apparel, sometimes they'll have a favorite clothing line or clothing brand, and they'll stay very loyal to that. And not to say that people don't stay loyal to their beauty brands, but I think there's just so many aspects from a beauty routine and a skincare routine that women and men, people that are using beauty products, love to just try and see what else is out there. I think that's why Sephora and Ulta have done so well, because again, people grew up on going to a MAC Cosmetics and getting the MAC makeover and kind of getting like the list of here's what I'm going to go out and buy. And I think in the digital area, they're seeing lots of that online. They're trying it, they're buying from home. But then they also go to a store, and because there's everything out there you can see, touch, and feel, that people want to kind of like just explore and find new trends and kind of what they're seeing out there. And especially because there's such a boom in these celebrity makeup brands, I think that's just attracting more people to kind of get curious about how is Selena Gomez's new product, or how is Beyonce's new skin or whatever line she's got going on. So there's just so much out there. I think that it just kind of alludes a little bit to that impulse purchase. But again, it's how do you kind of educate people? Because there's not one customer type. There are the impulse purchases, there are the considered purchases, and how do you kind of navigate between both? And I think that's what AI is really lending to find customers in the right time, in the right moment of that customer journey and buying behavior.
You know, what's interesting is that cosmetics and beauty in general have they go through economic cycles, you know, in the sense that if the economy's in a recession or whatever, people won't buy that expensive handbag, but they'll buy a makeup because they still want to feel pretty. They still want to show off. And so that cycle has almost been even put into overdrive with AI because there's so much discovery. There's so much going on. I guess the bigger question here is, and this is something I think we all want to know, I worked on a cosmetic brand in 2009 when the internet really wasn't as developed as it is today. Right? It was Urban Decay Cosmetics. It had gone through its cycle, very similar to Laura Geller. It was bought, sold. It was just basically stripped. It lost its real brand value. We were able to rebuild it basically by going to the people that did buy that and get their daughters and their granddaughters to really engage with it. We were able to identify a new customer, but it took a lot of slogging, right? It took a lot of basically, hands to the ground, hands to the keyboard to really kind of flesh it all out, and a couple of celebrity wins. Take that to today, right? Where you may not have to necessarily do that, at least from a content generation. I guess the bigger question that sits in my mind is there's a lot of clutter, right? There's a lot of economic forces. There's a lot of competition out there. How is AI really separating the wheat from the chaff? And potentially, is it steering people to the wrong place? Can it actually cause more clutter, more chaff to kind of prevent you getting the brand that you want to be, front and center?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so much components to that I think everyone's talking about, is AI going to replace the media buyers and performance marketers? But I think to your point, it's like someone needs to set up those guardrails to make sure that AI is being directed in the correct way. And I see this time and time again from and this is, I think, the challenge also, because Meta's developing a media buying platform to work for everyone, from the mom and pops to the Fortune 500 businesses. And so how are they going to know when you're saying hey, get me the best ROAS possible? ROAS for a Coca-Cola is going to be different than ROAS for the Midwest mom who just decided to start her own product line or something. And I think that's where AI is hopefully one day going to get better, but I don't think we're close to being there, because I think you still need to kind of like tell it who you're trying to go after, what your company and business goals are. And without understanding those inputs, I think it's fairly far off.
Well, beauty is perhaps, other than healthcare, one of the most human categories out there. And so there's a certain level of confidence and support with human interaction. That's at least my perspective, and why stores continue to be important and reinforcing what the experience is digitally and with AI. But I think the term that you mentioned earlier really speaks to the human in between the decision making, and that's being an arbitrage marketer. And I'd like you to sort of perhaps expand on that with the platforms, the technologies, and how you're doing that to engage, as you said, the right consumer in the right place with the right story.
Yeah, two unique situations I think really lend itself to that example. We were the first advertiser with AppLovin. If you're not familiar with AppLovin, it's mobile game advertising, and it was just an untapped category. Traditionally, mobile game advertisers just advertised other mobile games. So it's like you'd be playing Words with Friends and getting ads for Candy Crush. And there was just so much white space there that they're like, hey, you know what? Why don't we expand this to the e-com markets? And so we were first there to test it out and help build an ad platform. And it quickly became a significant part or portion of our media spend. And it was always this challenge, like, is this incremental? Is this just eating away? And it was very incremental, which I think also was that challenge of like, you know what, how do you kind of be everywhere and nowhere, because you kind of want to be like efficient with your ad budgets. And so I think that's where finding that area to be quote unquote a little more top of funnel at times and help tell more of this narrative around storytelling. And then the other big win for us was with TikTok shops. So we were early on to TikTok shops, and it was like, what is this? We don't know. And I think that's where, just from my leadership stance, is like, how do I kind of test some of these things without overcomplicating it for my teams? And you know what, once it gets to a point where it's like, how do I bring them in and kind of really be like, hey, like, this is something that I can have some top level strategy and kind of like guide you with it. But like, let's just see if there's any legs here first, instead of just being like, hey, you know what, day one, we're going to go all in on TikTok shop. We're going to need to hire a team. We're going to need to pivot content. It's like the core of our business still, and for most companies, you're going to be spending 50 to 80% of your budget on Meta. So you don't want to kind of like steer away from that. Obviously, every company wants to diversify, but how do you diversify strategically before kind of like rocking the boat too much? So I think that's where we were on it, and I was kind of playing around with it on the side and kind of like talking with others and seeing some wins. And then I think there were a few pivotal moments when the affiliate marketing angle with TikTok shops really kind of exploded, and that just became a massive opportunity. And that's one that we've really leaned into. I think that's also allowed us to kind of pivot and take creative wins from the TikTok shop content and now utilize that across other aspects of our business. And it's this kind of amazing flywheel effect for us, because they're motivated in a way that our other creative is not motivated. It's like, you know what, if we're going to work with an agency or if we're going to work with our internal teams, be like, how many pieces of content can we produce and put out and then test on ads? And then we have to put money behind the creative testing. With TikTok shop, they're incentivized if they make a sale. So someone out there can make 10, 20, 30 pieces of creative. And you know what? If one of them takes off, they're going to get paid for it. So it's in their best interest to keep trying. Everything else, our resource is either time or the cost to create it. If we have 1,000 creators or 10,000 creators, they're incentivized just on every sale they make. So again, it changes the game a little for where the wins can be found. And how do we kind of like enable an army of creators instead of our internal team or external teams that all have cost prohibitive like bandwidth.
Yeah, the dynamics and the energy of the storytelling among that kind of community is very different.
Well, and when you talk about TikTok, some of your brands actually sell to some older audiences. And I know that AI tends to skew towards 18 to 45-year-olds, really. And I don't know many people over the age of 50 who are comfortable and really well entrenched with AI. We'll say 55, maybe 60. But how do you fight against algorithmic bias against older people when you use AI today in your programmatic marketing and not alienate those older customers?
Right. I think that's interesting because for Laura Geller, it is definitely a mature customer. We focus on makeup for mature women, and our target demo is women 40 plus. But I think that's where it's like sometimes it's, you know, it is the mature woman, but it's for mature skin, really. So it's like you could be a younger person. So I think that's how do we reach a younger demo without isolating our core audience. And I think that's the interesting thing also with TikTok. And even people I've talked to that are women or girls in their 20s and 30s that tell me like, oh, I love your makeup. I got it from my mother. So I think it's also just inherently like, again, makeup could be for anyone, but it's like we don't need to kind of force it to just be in this niche category. But if people can still kind of enjoy it and consume it, I think that's also within the beauty of TikTok Shop. Because again, our website, it definitely speaks to that older, more mature customer. But with TikTok Shop, you can be having creators or influencers that are in their 20s and 30s. And we're not neglecting and kind of turning our backs on our older creators. But if they're consumers of it and love the product, by all means, we'd love if they can tell the story of why they enjoy it and why they like the product as well. And it's not kind of like now going after a different type of person or customer as well. And I think that's the challenge also with AI sometimes. Like you're trusting the algorithm to go find your next best customer. And I think a lot of brands early on, they pay to find out who their customers, because they force this route of like, you know what, I need to run ads. I think like if I were starting a business today, it's like, how do you grow organically, figure out who that customer is, and either lean into it or pivot away. I think this is where some businesses struggle. It's like you have those founders that like, I created this business because it's solving a problem for me, and I want our customer to be that guy in his 30s or 40s that's very active and goes to the gym all the time. And it's like, you know what, your customers are saying they're women in their 50s and 60s. It's like, okay, well, if that's who's enjoying and loving the product, maybe I should pivot.
Lean into that. Right. Lean into that. Sure.
And it's the challenge I think sometimes founders have, and I think what I have an appreciation with AS Beauty, because it was an owner-led business with founder brands that we acquired. And so it's like we were able to kind of lean in and trust the data instead of being like, no, we want to go after this younger demo. That's what AI is telling us. We want to go and focus there. It's like, well, where the return on ad spend makes sense and where we want to continue and tell that story is how we led the business. So that when they acquired Laura Geller in 2019, that was, I think, the evolution that they're struggling with was the previous owners had kind of started to go down this route of, hey, we want to be for everyone. We want to go after this younger demo. We're hearing there's lots of opportunity in that. And it's like, well, no, let's like go back to our roots. Like Laura created this product for mature women that were struggling with makeup routines. How do we make makeup a simple and fun experience again? And that was kind of all what it was about.
Well, and I would think that as being a set of brands which now has an expanded demographic, that you as this, arbitrage marketer, you're able to have a bigger pool to look at to be able to make better decisions about where your understanding of where your attribution and where your effort really should be.
That's the challenge these days. As you grow and are advertising across 9-10 channels, how do you think about measurement, incrementality, and multiple sales channels? So from .com to TikTok Shop to Amazon to online retail. So we're not in store. We don't have brick and mortar. We don't have retail stores. But again, I think that's the challenge at some other brands. That makes a fourth massive channel, a massive opportunity. How do you support the in-store customer and some of that? And like, how do you even think about pricing across all of them? I think that's where it becomes complex. Even if you were a single sales channel business looking at attribution and how is AI, and letting AI tell me, hey, I have $1 million budget. Where should I put the money? And let it tell you, okay, you're going to put 60% here, 20% over there. But then the challenge is, you know what, the platforms change. And then the next month or the month after, it's like, oh, like Meta this week released their new, I think it's they're putting more emphasis on view and engaged audiences and some of that. Okay, well, I had my incrementality study tell me that it was 15% incremental to Amazon's business. What does that look like now? Hard to say. Or I have a new creative that comes out and then is doing very well. And now all of a sudden, that's where I've been putting a lot of my advertising or new products. I think that's the challenge sometimes is trusting the algorithms and even the tools and data sets that you're using to kind of help determine some of this.
When you're running advertising, though, I guess, so I'm facing this issue now with the relaunch of these 4 brands that I'm working on. The bigger question is, advertising now, is the AI advertising the same? Basically, that's the bigger question I'm running, right? So you spend all this money and it's paid advertising, right? You give it a budget, whatever the budget is, and you go in and you're like, okay, I know I need that to sort of make up for lost time. But the question is it still valuable? Like if I'm using Perplexity or ChatGPT or Claude or whatever tool, Google, Gemini, or Siri, which my kids are now doing. But I guess the bigger question is it relevant? How much of it is relevant? I mean, we know TikTok Shop has worked. We know Facebook Shop is working. We know those channels work. Those really are tied into the shoppable ecosystem that AI feeds out of or feeds into, depending on your angle. But is it relevant? Is paid media, is the efficacy as strong as it once was? Is it harder to get the eyeballs, so therefore you have to double down, spend more just for the same result? Or do we need to start looking at this completely different? Like, I hate to say it, but is there already a ground shift occurred and we're just catching up to it? Scott, while you obviously did extremely well at AS Beauty, if you did AS Beauty today versus AS Beauty 4 years ago or 5 years ago, how does this work? Are you playing is the playbook different?
Oh, totally. I think the playbook, and that's, I think, the challenge. The playbook changes so fast every year. I mean, we've rebuilt our creative department for these needs. I think that's where we keep hearing time and time again, creative is important, creative is key, creative is king. I think that's what we focused on early on. Was like, you know what, to really win at Meta, we need to kind of really focus on improving our creative. But yeah, to the point now, it's like the algorithm are so different. If you click on any ad or visit a website from a Facebook or Instagram ad, even in that category, you didn't even click on those products, or maybe didn't even know about those other brands, but you're going to start served ads for that because the AI and the algorithm is so strong. You could be in like the most niche category. Like I've clicked on, I think, like performance supportive wear for skiing. It was like knee braces or something. And then I've got like 5 brands for knee brace companies I'd never even heard of. I was like, this is such a niche category that the AI was able to know because of all the interactions and other people that bought that or bought similar items. And then you can go into other categories that aren't as versed. And it's like, I'm looking for a new winter coat, or, I'm looking for a pair of slacks, and you're going to see all slacks and denim brands and some of that. And so I think that's the challenge, that AI has made the targeting so much more assistive that it really comes down to, at the end of the day, just like creating great products. Because if your product doesn't speak to itself, and I'm okay in the category, you're just going to get chewed out, because if you don't have the best product, if AI is putting all the 7 competitors up against each other and you're the weakest of them, that's going to be your biggest challenge. Again, creative and all those other things matter too. But if your product isn't the best, Meta is only going to be as good as like, you're interested in this, I'm going to give you all of them. Or even AI. It's like, I think that's where the agentic commerce thing is going, where it's like, you're just going to go to a Gemini, a ChatGPT is like, hey, who makes the best men's pants? I'm looking to buy pants this week. That's what I need. And it's going to be like, here's the 10 best ones. And then you're going to ask it a few more questions. But if the community and everyone else isn't saying Scott's business is the best, Scott's business is the best, it's going to become more and more challenging. Or you just compete on price. And that's the other angle. It's like, hey, I don't care if I'm the best. I want to be the cheapest and most affordable. And in a down economy, you're going to be able to eat up a lot of market share with that, of get people in the door. And maybe you can have a good product at a lower price so people will be happy with it. So again, that's, I think, the angle that sometimes businesses are going about with something. Or is there just like unique areas that people are doing something different with? I think like the Fabletics model is a great one. It's like, we're a membership community that's like, we're going to compete differently than the Nikes and the Under Armours because, it's a great product at a great price, but we're able to get people up front with this membership aspect as well. So how do you just think about disrupting a market or industry to be differentiated?
Programmatic, the quality of the product. How does AI measure the quality of that product? Is it strictly community voice, reviews? Those kinds of things can be fudged a little bit. How does an AI actually determine what connotes a good product?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's exactly it. It all depends on what it's pulling in and what it's leveraging. And I think that's where they continue to change. It goes back to the SEO game from like 5-10 years ago of like, how do I gamify my SEO to make sure that I'm showing up as the top one? And I think that's where I've talked with so many different, I guess we call them GEO agencies now, that are kind of like helping with how do you improve your searches within those channels. And I think that's where I don't even trust half of them, because I'm like, I don't think anyone knows it. And again, it's like, maybe that's the models are going to change in the next week or the next month. And so it's like, how do we kind of stay relevant? And it's like, I think it's like, just continue to grow. And people say, oh, you need a presence on Reddit because a lot of them are searching Reddit these days. And like, that's important. Is it creating more referral partnerships and PR communications and some of that? I think sadly, it's kind of just doing as many of them as you feel comfortable with and can. But then measuring it is the hardest thing. It's not like you can measure search rank like you could back in the day. So it's like, how do I see that I am continue to improve or grow? It's one of those challenges, I think. It's like, you can go to Google and be like, what is my search impression rank? And what is my branded search impression percentage? But with the agentic stuff, it's like, oh, like someone in our company will come up and be like, oh, I searched for us on ChatGPT and we came up as like the 5th thing. And someone else is going to search and be like, oh, I searched in Gemini. We were 3rd. And it's like, okay, well, how do I measure that? And then it's going to be different for you than it is for me, because, they determine that they've started to know what products and things I like. So again, saying that I'm lower ranked than somebody else may not be a good measure of the performance of that too.
Do you think that physical stores impact the perception of your brand, how your brand shows up in AI? Having a brand positioned inside a physical store, and then you search for it in the AI and it shows up. Is there any correlation there?
I think
what shows up on the AI search?
I think it all depends how stores are supporting you in that aspect. If you're just another product on a shelf, probably doesn't make a difference. It can help just consumers that want to go feel and touch it. But again, that's what we say today. But 2-3 years from now, the whole shopping landscape may change and it may be different. I mean, who is it? I think a lot like Twitch is the one where it's like you go and you get fitted and you actually don't even leave the store with any actual physical products, and it's all mailed and it's going to be sitting at home waiting for you, because everything is more bonobos.
Yeah.
The other multiple vowels and B one.
Box, right.
What about the subscription programs? The reality is that I think the subscription boxes kind of went through its wave. Mm-hmm. And then obviously the whole bonobos thing. Bonobos was a very good story line, but actually in practice, until the recent incarnation was bought, they never made a profit.
Right.
Like, that was the interesting part, is they never made a profit. They always were a loss leader, even though you would think they would have done really well, right? Because they didn't really have the cost of what normally found in the store. And they weren't sunk down because you now type inventory that's in one location versus somewhere else. But at the end of the day, they actually were a loss leader. They never made a profit ever in like 14 years.
Were they too soon though? Were they too early on? Like, could they have shrank their footprint of their stores were too big, and that was their cost, was the retail was just too expensive then? Retail.
I mean, you're right. It also could have been something as simple as their stores were in the wrong places.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's a very common refrain too. But the question that comes to mind about all of these things is, can the subscription boxes come back? In Sephora, you go in, get a impulse buy, and you walk out the door, especially if you're my teenage daughter with way too much stuff and my credit card bill is feeling it. Right. But the question ultimately is that would you then do a subscription program off of it? Right? Amazon Fresh, perfect example. All these Amazon Go stores that they launched, they started shutting them down because they realized that they weren't getting the residual income from a person walking in and buying a sandwich. It wasn't covering the cost of the rent, especially in the places where they needed to put them. So I guess the bigger question that I'm still strapping with this is, look, there's always a retail shift, always, but there's underlying themes that always occur, especially in the whole digital world from 1994 when I got started out in it, dating myself a bit, to today, right? Which is there's always underlying themes that are constant. I'm still feeling like maybe those constants aren't there anymore.
I think it's a time and place and a product and a fit and a margin standpoint. I think that's where it's like we said bonobos didn't work, but if you look at Casper has sleep stores. It's like, you know what, people want to go in, and I think they just have the margin to play with on a $2,000 or $3,000 mattress that they can afford to bridge that gap. And they made it fun and interesting. It's not like you're going into a mattress firm or a Sleepy's. You're like, this is going to be a sleep pod experience. So like you can rent out time and take a nap. We're going to give out free pajamas or something for people. So I think it's just like, how do you kind of do something different from that aspect? But yeah, I think the subscriptions, I think they're just, again, it's like the subscription model isn't new. I mean, how many everyone remembers the cassette tape subscriptions and Sam Goody and some of those things. It's like, you know,
Columbia House.
That's
Columbia House.
Yes. Yeah. And like, you know, what does that look like? I think it's a great way to pull cash forward and give value in different areas. And you know what? Consumers inherently are lazy. And so it's like a lot of people are going to forget to cancel subscriptions. So how do you kind of like pair that with showing value to keep them on long enough to generate this long-term value and incentive? And again, I think we talk a lot about AI, but at the end of the day, I think it's about building community. And I think that's what some of these things are doing, is building community when everything is going AI. And it's like, how do you use AI for some benefit, but then just create this more sense of like belonging? And I think that's where people want to belong and be buying products. There's a reason people in New York City all walk around wearing a Canada Goose jacket. It's like everyone wants to have that logo or that label or that staple and feel like they're part of it. And I mean, I think that's where
or the knockoff.
Yeah, that's a whole different thing. I mean, Brian, down where you are, you're in knockoff central. You will walk outside, people are selling you handbags left and right.
Absolutely. But I think you make the exact point, is that it gets down to what is the connection to what is the authentic connection to the human being that's making the purchase and experiencing it, whether it's digitally or in store. And how do you pivot when you need to, because it's going to change quickly.
Right. Yeah. And like to Josh, it's like, I remember as a kid, like, you know what? I had T-ball practice coming up. Where am I going to go buy a baseball glove? I'm going to Modell's because that's the experience I had. And I went in there and I talked with a sales representative, and he told me, walked me through, he even gave me the exact aspects, like, oh, you're going to want to oil this up and explain it. So I think that's where some of those angles are missed. So again, it's like, if that does become more of a digital experience for someone, and probably is, I guess a lot of people are buying baseball equipment or whatever online, but then what does that follow-up communication look like that you're missing because you didn't talk to a sales associate? What is that conversation like? Or that AI assistant that's going to help tell you, like, you know what, you just bought this glove. Do you want to kind of chat with our AI assistant? How do I break it in? And what does that look like? We're going to send you text message reminders, and we're going to build this conversation element. And you know what? Probably a few weeks down the line, we're also going to sell you a bat. We're going to sell you a batting glove. We're going to sell you more product. But again, it's like you've created that conversation. Again, I'm just making this up on the spot.
It's just riffing on it.
No, actually it exists. And I think you've made a really good point, because Nordstrom is already doing something that I think is very effective. They have their personal stylist service.
Right.
And so people can go and talk to a real person.
Right.
And the person will talk to them about their tastes. Meanwhile, they're typing that in. And what the customer doesn't see is behind the scenes, the AI is taking all that information and searching the hundreds of thousands of SKUs in Nordstrom and delivering a curated set of choices that the customer feels like their personal stylist chose them for them, but actually it's the AI that chose it for them.
Yeah. And I think that's where we're like in that kind of gap where it's like people are playing with and testing it, but until they really start to trust it and lean in, I think we're a few years off. And I think that's where we're really going to see this like growth in this area where people are going to use it more. I mean, I think back to when I started leaning more into the e-com world was it 2016, and like no one was shopping on their phones. It's like mobile commerce was becoming more of a thing, but still people would like go to their desktop and check out. People didn't want to check out from their phone just because they didn't trust it. They didn't feel comfortable with it. And now it's like everyone makes final purchases from their phone. I think it's going to be the same thing of like, you know what, I play around with the AI assistants and they help me shop and some of it, but I don't trust it too much. I don't use it enough. And I think it's just once people get more of that trust, that's when we're really going to see this kind of take off. And so it's just like, is your business going to be around long enough to capitalize on that? Or are we just investing too much time early on into it that we just want to wait and kind of like, okay, you know what, now it's where it's critical mass of like people are using. I mean, in beauty, we do this all the time with virtual try-ons. The virtual try-on stuff has been around for 6, 7, 8 years. And it's something that is.
But what's funny is like Brooks Brothers ran it. Brooks Brothers ran it back in like the 90s, where they had the ridiculously sized, elevator sized virtual try-on. It was like a box. You walked in, they gave you underwear, you get to take it home because and the reality was this was a machine that just sat there in their flagship store on Madison Avenue. And they said that it was a total dud.
Yeah.
Because even though you could go try it on, you could go through the whole rigmarole, people just went in for free underwear and never really bought anything. And the reality is, it was cheaper to buy, for what, I don't know how much that machine was. Maybe it was $200-300 It was cheaper to hire somebody, a tailor full time, to do the same thing that frankly didn't break down, yes, the tailor took for lunch and did stuff, but at the end of the day, it really wasn't worth the amount of money they plowed into it.
Right.
People still did that. People still do virtual shoe fitters. That's a huge thing that I met one at NRF, still probably want to have that conversation, but at the end of the day, is that going to change the needle at all? Is that going to move it?
Well, I just want to touch on some of the, where you were talking, Scott, about where AI is moving closer to the transaction, to the human being. And we could talk about self-checkout, but I'm more interested in the devices like the baseball glove, which will at some point be embedded with some sort of chip, which will then provide some coaching. And not that you can have nanotechnology embedded into a cream or a lotion to put on your face to tell you when it's time to reapply, but the bottle can tell you, will be able to tell you when it's at a certain level and it's, you're not using enough of it, and your skin.
It could be your vanity, your mirror, something that's going to do a scan of your face, be like, oh, you need to apply more moisturizer today. Your skin isn't there. Like, the glove is going to tell you, but then they're going to get you on the subscription. It's like what, like Whoop. Whoop. I had Whoop 4 years ago, and I was like, this is just an expensive Fitbit that I have to pay a monthly subscription to. I lost it. I didn't want to, I called them up. I'm like, I want to cancel it. Oh, why are you canceling? Like, oh, I lost my Whoop. They're like, oh, we'll send you a new one. Of course you'll send me a new one. It's a piece of that you're making all this money with my subscription membership that it's telling me to sleep more and be healthier. I don't need to pay $30 a month for you to go.
It's Columbia House.
Yeah, we're back to that again. Exactly.
We're back to that again. Yeah.
I don't need to pay money to know that I need more sleep.
Right. Or they should. Yeah. I need to put my baseball glove under my pillow at night. I don't need it to tell me that.
Did that actually? Anybody ever do that?
Oh yeah.
People do that. I didn't play baseball
anymore. Wrapping rubber bands.
Oh, of course.
Question that I love to ask Scott and Josh. This actually applies to you as well. You both have multiple brands under your purview. There's economies of scale in marketing, in programmatic, in anything that you do, but you have different brands with very different voices, very different customers. How do you balance the economies of scale and combining certain things, certain elements of your marketing tools with the individual brands and making sure you don't destroy the unique voice of each brand to reach that unique customer? Or is it a completely, for you, Scott, 5 separate, complete different marketing and engines that you've created?
Yeah, I mean, I think they all do need to be unique. There's a reason that the Thracios, the open stores of the world didn't work out, because everyone assumed that there was going to be this economies of scale. I think it was more the thought of economies of scale in that we can kind of cross-sell customer and consumer bases. And we still test this out with our group of brands. And we're going to cross-share email lists and some of that. But even as much as we think the customers are similar, it's hard to kind of convince them to go shop from something else. It's like, it feels a little too forced to them. I think the economies of scale, hopefully at some point, come within the AI aspect, that it's able to kind of identify things that we don't know. But again, it's like, taking the playbook that worked for Laura Geller isn't going to be the playbook that works for Bliss. They're still very different businesses. And I think that's where, if you look at the Estee Lauders and L'Oreals of the world, they're struggling to kind of like, how do we write a playbook and then rinse and repeat the playbook across our portfolio? And I think that's why they all kind of operate somewhat independently, but share some learnings, because there are going to be things that are shared ideals and shared resources. I mean, Can a help center or kind of some of that, can that be a shared resource? Can a CRM team, can that be a shared resource? And even just understanding like campaign structures. I think we get back to where I started with, like, you know, the way that a Fortune 500 business is going to buy ads on Meta is going to be different than the small mom and pop. Same in our portfolio of businesses. Like, you know what, the strategies are worth testing from one to the other. And again, it's calculated and you weigh the cost of the test. Like, is it my creative testing? Am I testing in a CBO aspect or an ABO or ASC? And you know, just because the large business is doing doesn't mean the small business shouldn't. But again, it's worth trying and seeing if this is what they're finding success with. That's how AI is going to better serve my ads to potential customers. Let me try and see it. But again, it's kind of evolving a bit of like what works, what doesn't, and how do I kind of think about my business differently. I mean, again, I think that the goal that Meta wants to get to is, we always used to joke, it's like the digital slot machine. I put $1 in, they give me $2 back. How do they do that at scale for all businesses? Yeah. That's what they're hoping with AI. It's like, I just can create product and I give them, here's my product, here's my website that I also created with AI. You go out and make me money.
Do you do any cross-pollination of your brands, like recommending Bliss skincare to somebody who's looking at Cover FX makeup, for example?
So we do, and that was the example I was saying, is like we do that, but it just doesn't have the same growth as you'd expect. It's like, you know, if we send to 1 million person list, like our conversion rates are not going to be great. Obviously, it'll generate some sales, but it's not going to do as well as if we were to send our core list of people that are like, you know what, I instinctively signed up to be on this list, or you know what, I'm buying products from here. I think there are interesting ways to do it. I know brands are doing a lot of this in kind of like the post-purchase aspect of like, how do we create partnerships? And you know what, I've already bought from the mattress company, and you know what, now when I get my mattress in the mail, they're also kind of giving me an insert that is a discount on someone else's sheets. And you know what, the sheet company pays to be in that insert and some of those things. So it's like, there's other ways I think to go about it that are more strategic possibly. But still, it's that tough part of like, you know what, people just don't want to be sold to 24/7. And it's like, why am I getting this? I didn't want to buy that. That's not what I care about. This is all I'm focused on. I don't need anything else.
You know, what's interesting is you see these economies of scale that Scott's alluding to. The commingling of email lists, Williams-Sonoma does it really. They do it extensively. In fact, all of a sudden you sniff a Williams-Sonoma product and you're signed up for Wet Elm, Pottery Barn, Reformation, you know, like you're literally got it all. And you're like, unsubscribe. And then they just re-add you. So, you know, it's actually turned me off to them, to be honest. And that's something that's a balance. You know, one of the things that's interesting about the brands I'm running, Linens and Things is a different customer than Steinmart. It's a different customer than Modell's. Very different customer than Modell's. And, you know, Franklin Mint, it doesn't have anything in common with any of the other ones. Right. You know, they're all in their little fiefdoms. You know, where Pier 1 and Dressbarn, which I don't have an involvement with other than just being in the same company and having some advisory capacity, they're brands. Those are actual brands, whereas the others are retailers. You know, even Franklin Mint, which had its own brands, which we're working on reestablishing, at the end of the day, it's still a retailer. And so it's interesting when you see these things. It's a very big dichotomy. Whereas when you're a brand and you have other types of brands, there are opportunities. I'm not saying that they're good opportunities, but there are opportunities where you can co-sell those other brands on the other brand sites. And you can take a Laura Geller lipstick and sell it on Cover FX or on Bliss, where they're, Scott's probably going to yell at me in a second, but I'm going to yell. Right idea. Maybe that's not. But
we see Bliss on Laura Geller because we're like, hey, we don't have a skincare. Let's have our skincare sold as an option for Laura Geller customer.
But that's the interesting part of this is that when you go to Franklin Mint, if I sent Franklin Mint a Linens and Sheets or Linens and Things sheet set, they look at me like I have 3 eyes and run away screaming. And probably never open the email or unsubscribe because it's just not the same thing. There are certain aspects, right? You can get away with like throwback jerseys on Steinmart and on Modell Sporting Goods. You can totally do that. I have an experiment running right now on Steinmart about running like resistance bands and exercise equipment, which is really square and center on Modell's. But I saw some opportunity and saw some, you know, just play where mostly women are shopping on Steinmart. That tends to be a trend. And they will also buy for their husbands, they'll also buy for their kids. So that's why they have those sections. But I'm not sure. And I'm still trying to figure it out, right, as we kind of build out these business lines. Mm-hmm. So my feeling is that you do get some economies of scale, but from a marketing standpoint, from a strictly the box you're playing in, if that box, even if it's 1%, 2%, I could give that. But you don't want to go for only 1%, 2% and alienate the 80%. That's the big danger.
Right.
But also this goes to, what are we missing? That's the bigger question. Like, here's a perfect example. We're selling a lot of sheets, a lot of home bedding, quilts and comforters and bed sheets on Steinmart, but it's not selling on Linens and Things at the moment. And Linens and Things is known for home products like bedding. And yet Steinmart is outstripping it probably 10, 15 to 1, which is a lot in terms of that dichotomy. So it's a challenge. It's really like, why is Linens and Things? And I got posed this question today. Why is Linens and Things, which should be known for bedding and small electrics and furniture and all those things, not selling bedding at the same velocity than Steinmart, which is, it's basically Macy's or...
Yeah, it's in their name, for goodness sake.
That's just not fitting. So what I've been digging into is AI and saying, okay, hey, AI, why is this velocity not there? Is it just not the right colors? Is it not the right season? I mean, obviously our marketing messaging is not there yet. We're still working through on getting access to our social media accounts. But that's ultimately goes to a bigger question of, okay, what do we do? How do we make sure that Linens and Things, which was known for this, Bed Bath & Beyond, when I walked into a Bed Bath & Beyond, I usually wound up the sheets and towel section because I always like new sheets and I always like new towels, mostly because I was a bachelor as a kid and I didn't really, or a guy, sorry, and didn't really have the opportunity to wash my sheets as regularly. So I bought new sheets instead, which is probably its own problem. But the reality is that I think that's where we are, sort of trying to figure this out. And I think, with Scott, it's a brand, right? But there's obviously opportunities for economies of scale. There with these retailers, you can alienate people more than you can get them to buy it. I still want to come back to this sort of AI question about shopping and about paid advertising, performance marketing. I really think this is the big question that's sort of resonating in my mind as I'm going through this, right? So I finished off a media room and I'm shopping it. And what I did was punch in all the dimensions into ChatGPT, laid out the room. I'm looking for a couch and a sofa. Do I do a sectional? Do that? And it's all recommending it to me. And it's recommending. I was like, hey, what about this Crate and Barrel one? What about this Our House one? What about this one that I found out on XYZ? And it's like, no, don't do it this way. Do this color. Don't do that color. It's actually steering me to where I go, but it's also steering me away from where I wanted to go. Mm-hmm. It's kind of pushing me and nudging me. And that's my sense of, okay, that's not AI, me being, Crate and Barrel's not paying, at least I don't think it's paying ChatGPT for the response of, hey, go buy it from Crate and Barrel. But from a Crate and Barrel standpoint, ChatGPT is telling me not to go buy it from Crate and Barrel.
Well, and that is where I think we're not fully there yet, but until your AI knows you exactly what you like, it's like, you may think you're a Crate and Barrel customer, but it's like, actually, you're not. You're an Art House customer. That's what you want to buy. And I think that's also the challenge. I said it comes back to just making a great product. Because again, if the great products are aligned with maybe the customer demo has changed for the products you're creating. And it's like, until enough people have these profiles. And at some point, it's like you're going to develop a product and you're going to feed it in AI, and AI is going to tell you how many potential customers do you think there are out there? Okay, you know what? There's a very small market. We're going to shelf this. We're not even going to put this into production because AI told us that they know where our customers are. We're not even going to develop it. But, and then color lines, all that kind of stuff. So it's like they help. I think that's where it's also getting interesting of having AI help with production management and kind of supply chain lines and how much are we producing? What is our current run rate for products? How do we know when to put in reorders and some of those things even?
To tune it and make it better and faster in the decision making, but then that still also, as with anything, requires a human in the mix to adjust the algorithm. But I have a question for you two about using AI in this programmatic process to reactivate older customers, because we make more by selling more to who we have and reactivating those who were past purchases and assuming we didn't blow it. So could you speak to that?
Yeah, I think there's a lot. I mean, it depends on how each business is thinking about their past customers. I think this is the challenge of like, what is a lapsed customer versus someone that's a repeat customer? What are you selling them, and where do you kind of put them in the funnel, and how do you think about reactivating them? I think that's where it's like, obviously you've got your warmer list, and for us it was like we wanted to kind of move people down the journey of becoming a one-time customer to a two-time customer, a two-time to a three-time. And you know what? If we don't get them to 3 times, it feels like they've fallen off, and then we're kind of like they're in this lapsed bucket. And the tactics that we use to get them as a customer the first time, do we think about spending money on them? I think is the challenge. Like a lot of times, I was like, no, I don't want to spend the same money. Like my CAC for a new customer shouldn't match the CAC on my lapsed customer, because you know what? I already spent once to acquire them. I could spend again, but is that even beneficial? Or it's like, can I spend money, but is it going to be a little less? I think that's the challenge that
right.
Like, what does that look like? Or is it we reserve those lapsed customers for new products? Like, you know what, maybe they fell off just because they didn't love our current product mix, but we've launched something new that maybe they'll realign with these new products, so they know the business, they know the brand. And again, I think it's like that same thing of if AI is able to comb all this information about that lapsed customers, like actually this person's lapsed, they left good reviews on you, and they seem to like you, they just stopped buying. We don't know why. Maybe you do need to introduce a new product to them or something.
Right.
But if it's like, hey, they bought from you once, they left terrible reviews, they don't like your product, it doesn't work for them, ignore them. Don't spend any time re-engaging them.
Right. And AI will be able to collect more about that individual type purchase and help you make decisions as to whether or not that future investment is a better or not.
Yeah. Here's what's interesting. And Scott, I don't know if you had this with, AS Beauty, specifically Laura Geller. Did you, when you took over the business from Jan Saul, did all the legacy orders, all that historical information go with it? Did you start out with it?
I think, that was predated me, but I'm pretty sure I think it lived somewhere. I think we tried pouring over, and I think this is what Glanzall spent a year trying to organize that data, and they did very poorly. But I think we just kind of gave up on it and started from scratch. I think that's like, even when we kind of looked at, I think with one of the brands we acquired them when they had a huge list. And then you go through the things of like, okay, we want to clean this list because we've got millions of people on here who are just almost worthless. Because again, when these lists sit like dormant for a while, they kind of go stale. And so you're just paying a lot of money to like these CRM tools to kind of keep these lists. But if you haven't talked to them in a year or two, it's like they've forgotten about you. You're not around anymore. Out of sight, out of mind almost.
Well, here's the fun part. So kind of have the same sentiment, or at least I thought I had the same sentiment.
Okay.
And so obviously with the 4 brands I took over, we have all their historical information from like 2019 to 2022, in some cases a little longer. But you're right, we haven't, meaning these brands, in a lot of cases, they're like I just posted on LinkedIn today about, okay, what's the first step? Start email. Right. The problem was email was set to reject all emails. Right. So basically, even when we were sending out email blasts trying to list warm, all Gmail was just bouncing. Like before it even hit Gmail, it would bounce at the Gmail service saying get out. Like, no, you're telling us not to accept it. And so here's the interesting part. So we're digging into this information. In some cases, it's millions of records. And we're looking at it and like, okay, what do we do with it? And also it was time and place. When these businesses were in their heyday under a previous administration, the interesting part of it was that was COVID. People were buying, exercise gear and things along those lines on models. They weren't buying what they're buying today, which is not COVID. And so first off, what are the takeaways? How do you handle those takeaways? How do you understand what those are? Second, do exactly what Scott nailed, right? Which is you haven't talked to these people in 5 years, right? Like, you have to rewarm them. You have to figure out, are they even engaged? Now, from Frank Lemin's standpoint, collectibles is collectibles. And ironically, it's almost an even split between repeat and new. Whereas on Steinmart, it's all new. We've had one repeat customer. Everybody else is new. And so I'm like looking at it and I'm like, okay, maybe it's just because our marketing initiatives, we're just starting marketing, right? We just launched paid ads. We're launching email, we're launching the triggered email, we're doing SMS, we're building the SMS list. You know, like we're starting out with the basic stuff. We just started doing social in the last 2 weeks. So you're talking about fundamental stuff. You're not even talking about bleeding edge things. You haven't gotten there yet. We don't have a budget yet to define that. But the bigger question is there any value with them? Other than just knowing that they're there, or knowing that they previously purchased, is there value with those customers? And then when I ask AI, right, I'm like, hey, AI, here are all these customers. Here's a customer profile. You know, the thing is, it looks at it as a face value of they're not 5 years old. They're people that placed orders within the last couple of months. What do you do? Because AI is misreading it too. Performance marketing is misreading it too, right? They treat them like a repeat customer when they're not. Mm-hmm. The list has somewhat gone stale, but is it, right? And your customer's older, right? It's 5 years old.
I think it's like you're saying, it's like, if you just don't have a huge repeat business, like it's not even valuable. But if you know your business is a huge repeat market, I mean, again, everyone wants to have a big repeat business, but you can't force it. So it's like, if that just doesn't exist, it's like, you know what, you can have the biggest list that you acquired with Steinmart, and it's just like, no one's coming back and buying a second time. So it's like, this list is great to have, but are there other things to do with that list? Does that just inform your data for who to go after? So it's like taking the list and letting AI be like, hey, I'm going to analyze your customer profile and your kind of customer base to then inform who you go and target for new customers. I think that's really what a lot of it is doing at times. But then also it's like, what are the other tags? Like you're saying, it's like, you know what, we're already blocked from half these people. We know we've got a great repeat business. I just can't email this list. It's like, okay, well, maybe I'll try and do like a direct mail campaign or do something. I've got this customer information, and then use AI to be like, hey, who are and again, it's more expensive. It's not the most cost effective. You can't just send a postcard to everybody on that list, because it's just going to be tens of thousands of dollars. So it's like, okay, well, how do we use AI to be like, hey, what is the customer segment that I should create to test this out with, to see if it even works? So you can kind of like test into it and then if it does work, scale from there.
Yeah.
Right. It's fair.
I've got one question for you guys, just back to Josh's point about the designs and Steinmart and linens and things, and the difference performance between essentially the same item as what you're saying, though different demographic and history of buyers, but proportionally less. Are there tools that you look at? You know, everybody like Josh, I'm looking at the site, I'm trying to figure out what the difference is between the two. And we all work hard to get people in brick and mortar in the door, online, to the e-commerce store. What are we doing about making sure the experience when they get there, you know, how different are those two on Steinmart versus linens and things, as you said? You know, if it's actually comparing apples to apples, is all the plumbing working? Is the content exactly as it should be? Where are there glitches? What tools are you using to make sure that that's checked and fixed versus all sorts of humans trying to fix different elements of it, or identify the elements that need to be fixed, or agencies that want to charge you for doing that?
Well, I guess that's also goes to, let me start with the last point, and this is where I would love Scott to weigh in. Agencies. How much of AI is now adjusting what agencies do, but also what they don't do, right? Like the reality is, one of the biggest problems I had with agencies, and it's not necessarily every agency, it's like a broad stroke, is that you would bring in like the best of the best, and they would give you a really good sales pitch, and they would have senior leadership on it, and then you would get a junior staffer. Right now, the reality was the junior staffer was valuable because they needed to learn. Those were cheaper resources they could throw at this thing to do the sort of the scut work. And then they grew, and hopefully they stayed at the organization. Otherwise, you had to go train somebody again. But the bigger question is, do they still need this junior staffer? Because the AI agent will do it for them. And how do they train that model?
Yeah, I think that's hopefully with the agency model, it's like the agencies can charge less because the value of that was the senior person was developing the strategy, and the junior person was still executing it to the T's and the I's that the person then had to like cross and dot. Now is it like, you know what, the junior person is more of a project manager. You're still getting that high level like strategy from an agency. They're able to charge less because they have less junior people on it. It's more on a project management and kind of like, hey, is this executing to the needs of the business? Has something changed? Because they're more an intake person and making sure the output is executed, but you're still going to them for strategy. Again, at some point, can you just go to AI for strategy? Possibly, but I think there's just so many complexities to a business that the AI doesn't fully grasp sometimes, that you're not telling it. Like, what is the goal of my business? What am I trying to achieve? And I keep finding sometimes that the AI just spits out sometimes what I want to hear, not what I need to hear. And I'm like, tell me what I don't know. Don't just kind of like be a yes man to me, which is what you want from an agency. You don't want the agency to be the yes man. I think, I mean, and to the other point of like, what are we doing with creating all these different, like the website to look different for everyone? It goes back to, I remember early on, everyone looked to like Harry's and Dollar Shave Club and is like, look how many different landing pages they're running. They're running all these different funnels. And so it's like, that's, I think, where the goal is to try and go. Like, I've worked with a lot of brands that they don't know who their identity is because they want to be a product for everyone. It's like someone that has, like in the wellness and supplement space, it's like someone that has gut issues, someone that has attention issues, someone that has different other like aspects that they're going to use the product for. But you're talking to someone in 7 different ways, or someone that's looking to lose weight. It's like, you know what, I'm selling a product that can fill 7 different needs, but how do I meet them at the right time? And so I think that's what, and I've been pushing Meta on this for a long time, and hopefully they are building and working on something to this at some point. But it's like they've done a great job of collaborating your creative to find creative for that right type of person. And you know what, I'm going to serve the ad that Josh wants to see, that Barney wants to see, and Deanne wants to see, and it's going to be a different ad for all of them. But you know what? I, as the business owner, went and created all these ads because I knew that there were pockets of customers. The problem is I'm sending you guys all to the same exact landing page probably, or to the same homepage or something. How do I also now feed Meta, hey, I've got 3 different landing pages that are sourced for these different types of customers? And again, we can do the same thing of like, you know what, the ad that's talking about, you know, dry skin is also going to land them on a dry skin page. But that may not actually be what they need. It's like, you know what, my dry skin ad may actually send someone to a promotional. And maybe that's what is going to sell someone, because that person saw all 7 of my ads. And just because they clicked on the dry skin ad doesn't mean that's going to be the tactic that sells them. So it needs to let the AI be like, oh, actually, you know what? They've actually seen all of your content. They know all about you. But to get Scott to make a purchase today, don't also show him a dry skin ad and a dry skin landing page. Show him a efficacy page about why it's clinically proven and all of these other aspects. So, because he doesn't care about the dry skin, he wants to know that, you know, it's doctor approved and doctor formulated or something.
And then give him a 10% off to motivate him to.
Right. But maybe they don't need the 10%. Maybe that's where we're giving everyone the 10%. Like Meta's AI and their media buying is just missing that one component. They've got everything else great. They just don't have the on-site experience, and they don't touch that. So it's like, how do they help get all of those different aspects? I mean, they've got a pixel on all of our pages. They know all about our website and everything. It's like, if we give them, here's 10 different pages, you choose where you want to send someone. If I'm telling you, I'll give you $1 million if you could get me the best return on ad spend, but you're just missing, here's all the pages and options you have. That's the one component they're not controlling.
Very interesting.
Thank you so much, Scott. This has been fascinating. I mean, I think we could go another hour.
Of course, yeah. It's interesting landscape. I mean, the last piece I'd leave people on is, I think everything is worth testing and kind of trying and kind of understanding your data and seeing what worked for someone may not work for you, or it may, and vice versa. I think it's like, you know what, how do you kind of like look at all this stuff, stay on top of it, talk to people, have these conversations, because you know what, it's evolving and changing quickly, and people are putting out new information and updates. And also, you know what, don't be afraid, like, am I behind in what's going on with AI? Like, a lot of us have that fear sometimes, like, you know, I hear what people are doing with Claude, and they're automating all their media buying, and they're doing that. And it's like, you know, we're not completely there yet, but have those conversations, find out what other people are doing, and try it and test it out. I think that's how you're going to be at the forefront of it, or just kind of like figuring it out and being a part of it. I think there's no harm in feeling that you're behind.
Great closing comment. Thank you, Scott.
Yeah.
Mind if I go with that?
Go for it.
All right.
That was awesome.
All right. Bye for now.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.